as these property rates get artificially lifted up by a lot of this state money and a lot of these new people that they want to bring into Buffalo to invest in Buffalo, really to push us out, that we need to create affordable ways to keep people in our neighborhoods. Now, on the city level, on the east side level, I want to just put out some facts about Buffalo. It is the third poorest city in the United States. It is the sixth most segregated city in the United States. It is a 30% poverty rate, 50% child poverty rate. Now, if you look at what has been done in the past few years, we had a Harbor Center built, right? Basically, it's a party place for people that like hockey. And there's some people that like to come, and there's some business that gets generated out of it. Now, Terry Pegulas just did a deal for $7 billion, one deal for $7 billion. And he got $57 million from the state of New York and from Erie County to build this hockey rink. Is that right?
No.
Could he have done it himself? He bought the Bills cash. He could have built that. He didn't need that $57 million. So before we say that money needs to get spent on the east side, we need to look at where it's being spent right now, because that's how we hold our elected officials accountable for what they're doing. Now, if somebody was to come up to an elected official and say, why did you give somebody who's worth $10 million, $57 million for downtown when we have a 30% poverty rate, and we have a 50% child poverty rate? Now, can you answer me why? How do you think that they would respond? But see, nobody's doing that. So what we really need to do is create a culture where people can't just get away with this. Because right now, you can say Buffalo building all you want, if no one's there to say something about that, if no one's there to challenge people about that, then they're just going to keep doing it. And we all know hustlers. As long as you let them hustle you, they're just going to keep doing it and doing it and doing it. So we just got a new deal to bring IBM here. They gave them $55 million. IBM, they invented computers. This is $100 billion, enterprise. It's ludicrous. They gave them 55. And so for the first project, the cost per job that they created, $134,000 a job.
Wow.
So are we actually supporting jobs being created, or are we just giving some free money to some folks?
Yes.
IBM, $55 million, $110,000 a job. Delaware North moved their office, which they were already getting $4 million in tax subsidies for, and said, we want to build us a nice new office, and we'll hire 65 people. So, again, they gave them $10 million. They wanted 15. You pushed back a little bit, got them down to 10. So that was $153,000 a job. And if you go down to that site right now, you will see 4 or 5 black guys standing outside with a big sign that says wage dispute. And you're going to see a whole bunch of white people working away in there.
Absolutely.
Now, we need to support them. We need to create a culture where that cannot happen with them standing by themselves. We have to support each other.
Stand up, Buffalo.
It is time to stand up. And just a quick, so for the medical campus, I've actually, along with Jim Haney, the Investigative Post, Public Accountability Initiative, all groups, been trying to figure out, for the $500 million that the state put in, the $300 million that foundations, supposed to be supporting nonprofits, put into this project, they cannot tell me how many jobs that they've created. They can't tell me the addresses of the people they write the checks to. They refuse to give that information up on all levels. So I couldn't even give you a statistic for how much. But what I do know is that there is plenty of money flowing through this city right now. And anybody who is in the civil rights world knows Frederick Douglass and his quote, "Power concedes nothing without a demand." So it's time for us to publicly demand, not just sit in this room, not sit in our little spaces, but publicly, everywhere these people are, demand that money gets invested in our communities. The other problem is we have a lot of crumbs being thrown around the city. And we have a capacity gap. So they can say, we brought IBM, brought all these jobs here. Well, how many people here can work for IBM? How many people here can work for the medical campus? And the truth is a lot, because there are a lot of positions there that do not require this education. But again, they're not going to tell you that initially, So you have to, again, know the game and understand how to demand what you need. And the way PUSH was able to establish our community was by holding National Fuel accountable. We were trying to build houses. All of a sudden, we find out everybody's paying these skyrocketing heat bills. And we find out that you know, part of your bill was going to weatherization, and they were spending it on advertising, you know. So we went out to David Smith's office, you know. We went and talked to our elected officials, and we demanded that that money being spent on weatherization. And in turn, you know, we started getting grants to weatherize homes. We started getting grants to build sustainable, you know, zero-impact homes. But that came from a fight. And I think a lot of people, when I go around and hear, well, why isn't there a push on the east side? And, you know, why isn't this happening on the east side? And it's because we don't have, it didn't take a lot of people, but that small group of people that was willing to take the risk, that was willing to challenge the authority, that was willing to get in people's faces, show up at their houses, show up at their office. Supporting your elected officials is great, but elected officials are trapped by the culture that they're in. And how many of you guys have seen Selma? Selma. Okay. So when Lyndon Johnson was calling Martin Luther King and telling him to stop marching, did he say, okay, well, let's sit at the table and let's negotiate? No, he said, no, we're going to keep marching until you do what I want. And our problem right now is we keep negotiating and negotiating and get the same deals that the people that were on this planet first, the Indians got. We're getting these kind of deals where you get a little something here, but long term, you get a 33. You get the divestment from the neighborhood. So I'm working on initiatives with Open Buffalo and Push Buffalo, what we call high road economic development. And that is holding the Buffalo billion, the infrastructure, accountable for, okay, you gave us $1 billion. Where is it? Who's getting it? Are you getting it? Are you getting it? Is somebody getting access to it? And then on the other side, we have the ability to increase our capacity. There's an illusion out here that everybody just pulled themselves up from their bootstraps. Anybody really believe that? I'm asking serious. If you do, we can have a conversation about it. But the reality is, people get grants, people go to banks, people borrow money from their family. When you want to start a business, when you want to go into a venture, you ask people to invest in you. And you show them through your work that there's going to be a return on that investment. Mm-hmm. Well, right now, the east side is getting redlined. Yes. It is getting redlined. We've been doing some statistics that I cannot release yet, but if you looked at the percentage of loans that were given to black people in this city, it would make you want to cry. Because the reality is we're in a situation that's the exact same as it was during the Civil Rights Movement. We just have these new sets of illusions that allow us to delude ourselves into thinking that things are different, but they're not. And there is more money flowing through this city than ever, which means if those percentages are correct, there is more money being put in the hands of privileged white business owners than there ever has. And so we are living in the result of that. And so the other thing I'm working on with them is what's called a responsible banking ordinance. Now, right now, the CRA, which was a great piece of legislation, requires banks to report what they do in a metropolitan strategic area. What that really means is they're only required to report in Erie County and Niagara County. So you could put 35 million banks in Amherst and none in the city, and they say, oh, you're doing a great job. So what we want to do is require banks in the city of Buffalo to report what they do in each council district, to report what they do, to break it down. Because if you look at the statistics as we have, you see that, and you know, Eric Seiderman did a good job of holding Evans Bank accountable, but he stopped there. And he stopped there because there weren't people outside Evans Bank and outside every other bank saying, what's up with your numbers? Can you prove to me that you are being accountable to the CRA and to our communities? Because there are people here that need access to capital, that need loans to improve their homes, to weatherize their homes, to purchase their homes. So I'm a firm believer that we need mixed income communities. We need some renters, we need some homeowners, but again, if we don't build the capacity of our community to understand financial systems, we will never be able to hold them accountable for investing in us. So responsible banking requires these banks, if they want to get the city money, which is about $550 million in their account, and they want the accrued interest and the leverage that they're able to generate from letting that money sit in that guaranteed money every year, sit in that account, then we want something from you. If I went to First Niagara Bank today, the billboard says if I have direct deposit, I get $100. Well, collectively, our sales tax, the monies that we pay into these systems are being put in an account, and they're getting that $100 that they can give to us. So, number one, what we want to do is hold them accountable for creating a community investment plan. That if you want these city deposits, you have to show us a plan of what you're going to do for our communities. And if we don't like it, then we'll go on to the next plan. Sorry, that's how banks work. And if we were on the other side of the table and you didn't like our plan, you would have no problem moving right past us. So we want to hold them accountable for the money that they're making off of us that we don't even realize, that we don't even understand is happening. JP Morgan Chase Bank holds 70% of the money. Anybody know a JP Morgan Chase Bank in Buffalo? So even if they were the greediest bank on earth, they don't give out a loan to, even a white guy, even Carl Palladino couldn't go get a loan from them, because all they do is hold the money. And that allows them to go gamble all over the world, doing all kinds of crazy things, and that's how our economy ends up in the situation that it is right now. So we need to hold them accountable and the city accountable to say, you have this money, you have this leverage, how are you using that to help our city? And we need community control. At the end of the day, all of these things come back to, does the community have an opportunity to make the decision? Because when the community makes decisions, pushes proof, it works out for the community. Because we know what we want where we live. That's our line. We know what we want where we live. So anytime we leave it up to, even if it's Betty Jean Grant, one of the most amazing politicians I've ever met, as long as the decision is in someone else's hands, you cannot truly be represented. So our goal is to create systems of accountability that allow for community inclusion. So we have a community review board for this financial information that will be newly found. And that is going to include all of you guys coming together, reading these reports, doing some work, doing some homework, and say, okay, which bank is going to create the biggest benefit in Buffalo? Which bank is going to fund a new charter school? Which bank is going to build a new park? Which bank is going to give us special interest loans or interest-free bonds to cover the 33 Expressway? Because that's what they do for the medical campus. That's what they do for the Harbor Center. That's what they do downtown. So again, all these things are going on around us and most people don't know about them. So it's time to really bring them to light so that people understand that we're not going to ask for, oh, well, we just want you to invest in the east side. No. We want special financing. We want the state subsidies. We want specifics. So I'm hoping that we can create a group here and in collaboration with We Are Women Warriors where we're able to push these issues both through elected officials and through our communities and to inspire, agitate, and challenge people around the fact that stepping up doesn't mean just getting angry and frustrated, but taking that next step. And sometimes that next step may be boring, maybe showing up to a meeting and maybe doing some research. And it may be, if you don't want to do that, sitting on the sidelines and waiting until we know the right moment is to put pressure on the people who are making decisions for us. So I have over here, and I'll pass them around, some support cards. In the month of May, we're going to be bringing this responsible banking ordinance to the Common Council. We have the support of most of the city. But there's a few council members here that need some urging because they've been getting some phone calls from banks saying, well, if you pass this legislation, we're all going to leave. And we all know how business works. You got $550 million. You are not leaving. Let them go. And that's the thing. We get this threat, too. You know, they say, oh, Delaware, no, well, we're going to leave. We've been headquartered here for 30 years. Jeremy Jacobs is a $3 billion. But you know what? We're just going to pick up all of our stuff and move some. Really? No, you're not going to move. You just want some extra money. And it's a hustle. So again, my goal is to educate people to the specifics of the hustle so that when we have these conversations about bringing money to the east side, that they're specific, that the demands are clear, that the demands are accomplishable by the other side, because otherwise, they're not going to respect you. Yes, they'll tell you, oh yeah, we're going to send you some crumbs, we're going to give you this, we're going to give you that, but you have no way of knowing whether or not that's happening, how it's going to happen, who it's going to happen with. So it's time for us to get specific. And I'm hoping that with all of these groups that we can come in and really focus on the political education of the leadership, so that can get down to the base. And everybody on the east side, if Andrew Cuomo walked in here today and said, hey, it's beautiful that I gave you this $1 billion, every one of you could say, well, actually, you didn't give us $1 billion. You gave them $1 billion, and now it's time for you to use the money that's going to be generated from that $1 billion and put it in our city.
All right.